Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming on this Saturday. I don't, I hope that wherever you are, the weather is nice. I am Professor Patty Tamara Lenard. My job is I have many jobs, including parenting two people upstairs who are in the middle of a big Lego expedition. And I have asked them not to come down. Optimistically, they will not. And in the meantime, my other job, which is the one that's relevant for you today, is that I'm the supervisor for conflict studies and human rights. So this is sort of an imperfect way to impart information to you through this little PowerPoint slide presentation. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you, I'm going to talk about 10 minutes about the program, and then you guys should feel free to ask questions. You can just ask them into the chat, and either I will see them or somebody will Zoom slideshow. Somebody will tell me what they are, and I will answer them. I have lots of answers, and I don't actually know what precisely you would like to know about our program, so you should feel free to interject. All right. Okay, so what is conflict studies and human rights? Look, there's a whole slide that says it. I'll read it to you. Armed conflict continue to erupt despite efforts to build peace. Why? The purpose of the conflict studies and human rights program is to look at the causes and consequences of armed conflicts and how human rights interact with them. War, peace, migration, international law, security, and much more. So usually what we find is that the students who come to us have some, roughly half of students have a real strong interest in a certain conflict or a certain region that tends to be conflict prone. And then we have another set of students who are really interested in the question of how human rights came to be a thing that we were focused on, and how we can protect them and which ones matter the most, because there's all different kinds of ways of understanding what constitutes human right and which sets of things should be protected as human rights and so on. So those are the students that we have, and then they come together in our program to look at the relationship between conflict and human rights by looking at what causes conflict. Sometimes conflict is caused because human rights are being violated, and how can we protect human rights during times of conflict, and those kinds of questions. So there's many intersections between conflict studies and human rights. All right. So what is it? Why would you want to come here? Look, here's 5 bullet points of great reasons that you should join us. It combines the study of conflicts with the study of human rights. So that makes us, according to the slide, makes us unique. But it does make us, I would say, it does really give a good sort of overview of the kinds of things that we're facing as a global community. What types of conflicts are ongoing, how they start, how they conclude, and then how we can protect human rights while they go on, if at all. It's a strong program. Students are good. And students are typically happy with the program that we offer, especially by the end. The faculty, there's about 12 to 14 of us, and we're dedicated, productive, and highly qualified. And we're populated by excellent students, which is just a way of repeating number 2, which is that we're academically strong. Students tend to be good, which is to say that it tends to be the case that students with relatively high GPAs are the ones who choose to join us and who stick around. What will you learn? All right, so look, basically, you learn about what causes conflict and how it's resolved, what are human rights, where do they come from, how they work in the real world, and how do conflicts and human rights related to each other. Because I said on a previous slide, sometimes the relationship between them is that human rights violation cause conflict. Sometimes conflicts are inevitable, or they seem to be inevitable, and the result is that human rights are violated during the conflict. And then we have these kinds of questions about what is the role, it says here international institutions in preventing conflicts and protecting rights, but there's all kinds of questions, including what are the roles of governments, what are the roles of NGOs, what are the roles of international institutions? Could we build international institutions that would be able to better prevent conflict or better protect human rights in general and while conflict is ongoing? And what role do human rights play in international relations and global governance? And so these are questions that students are sometimes interested in, having to do with which ones become important during the Syrian conflict, which is in a sense still ongoing, but during the height of the Syrian conflict, people were really interested in the question of crossing borders and whether people had the right to cross borders in order to seek refugee status. But you can have other conflicts or other situations where other human rights are the ones that are relevant. Questions about whether people have the human right to the natural resources that are on their territory, whether individuals have human rights to food security, and how should we think about food security as climate change makes arable land more difficult to protect over time. So there's a anyway, there's a whole range of questions that we talk about over the course of the 4 years that you would be with us if you choose to join us in the end. The professors, I mean, look, I mean, I'm obviously biased because I am one, and because the other professors are my friends and colleagues. But one thing that I think is really special about ECH is that the professors in the program are really high quality in the sense that they're doing active research in present conflict zones, focusing on protecting specific human rights, and they're doing that right now. We are all individuals who will bring our research into the classroom. We are all people who are very keen to engage students in our research. And I will tell you a secret, because you're all black boxes and I have no idea who you are, so it feels okay to tell you secrets. But typically the students in ECH are so strong that many of the professors will choose to hire and work with undergraduates over the graduate students in other programs because students are very strong. So, for example, just to give you one example, I just signed a contract with an undergraduate student who is going to do some work on whether countries can ban their citizens from taking up employment opportunities in the Gulf countries. You may or may not know that the Gulf countries are sometimes don't treat their migrant workers very well. And so some countries, Sri Lanka, Nepal, the Philippines, have decided that actually they're going to ban their citizens from going to those countries to take up employment opportunities. And you might think, well, good, states are in charge of protecting the rights of their citizens. Or you might think, that's bad, people should be able to take employment opportunities of their choice, right? And so we're going to do a project looking at the different types of policies that countries have adopted to ban their citizens from leaving to take up employment opportunities. That's just one example. And so, which is to say that students tend to be very keen to do research with professors, and professors tend to be very keen to work with them. The professors that are in the program, we're all specialized in particular areas so that we can come together to provide a coherent program. So we have a couple of people who have an expertise in the Middle East, one person who's in particular an expert in Israel, Palestine, which continues to be an important conflict in our global space. We have two people who are experts in various portions of Africa, one in French-speaking Africa largely, and one in English-speaking Africa. We have a couple of China experts who expand their interest to related Asian countries in that space. We have one person who's developing an expertise in indigenous politics. That's me. And we have several people who are interested in international law and human rights and the mechanisms by which NGOs protect those human rights. So we have a sort of a wide range of people and who have very active research programs in specific domains, and we come together to offer, I think, what is a great program. Okay, look, this is here's what you'll learn. You'll learn lots of things. A broad and deep understanding of the sources of conflict, variety of theories of conflict, strategies to cope with uncertainty and ambiguity in the social sciences, the role of human rights and international human rights law in conflicts, etc. Which is to say that, look, I mean, if you study in the social sciences, which I take it that many of you are thinking of doing, there's a sort of a standard set of skills that you will learn across all of them. You'll learn critical thinking skills. You'll learn how to apply theory to practice. You will learn about different types of research methodologies, quantitative and qualitative research methodologies. And what one of the main decisions that you get to make is that if you get to apply them in certain types of contexts. So in ECH, obviously, the way in which you learn those skills and develop those skills is by studying conflict and by studying human rights. So the skills are in this set, they're transferable across the social science schools, but the particular topics that you study are particular to conflict studies and human rights. So look, more skills: to read and listen carefully, to formulate and clearly express ideas in speech, to analyze, synthesize, evaluate complex situations, right? Sure. So these are the kinds of skills that you will gain in any social science program. And so the question that maybe you're asking yourselves today is whether or not you want to learn those skills over the course of looking at various types of sociological problems or anthropological problems, or with a focus on conflict studies or human rights. Here's what we look like as a program. It's a 4-year program typically, and the first 2 years are on the theoretical side. We have students who are students spend their time learning about the method theories to explain conflict and human rights, the methods that researchers use in this space. And then usually by the 3rd and 4th year, students have chosen to specialize. And I will also say that usually the students that are happiest with us are the ones who have chosen to specialize deliberately. So this program rewards students who have a little bit of energy to think about how to construct a program that is worthwhile to them. And so by specialization, I mean sometimes people will specialize in one of the major global regions, the Middle East or Sub-Saharan Africa or Northern Africa or South America, etc. Some people sometimes will choose a region. Sometimes people will choose types of conflicts, right? Conflicts that generate the movement of refugees, or conflicts which are connected to or deeply related to questions of terrorism, so that we can specialize that way. And other times people will focus on specific human rights. So some people will be interested in the right to food security, and so you will be interested in the set of spaces in which individuals do not experience food security, and how global space could protect food security. Or sometimes people are interested in the right to movement. Under what conditions should people be allowed to cross borders? Sometimes people will be interested in the right to water, and what we should do about the fact that increasingly it is difficult to access high quality water in many global spaces, often because of environmental changes. Or sometimes people will be interested in the rights of women and where they are best protected and where they are most likely to be undermined, and by who, and how we can protect them, etc. Point is that the thing that you think, if you plan to join us, the thing that you should be thinking about is what spaces you might be interested to specialize in, so that when you get to your 3rd year, you can construct from the availability of options a program that is interesting and meaningful to you. After university, you can do whatever you want. So generally, here's some stuff with question marks over it, but I don't know how interesting they sound to you. So there's clusters of jobs. A lot of people who graduate from conflict studies go into the government. Many go into NGOs, especially NGOs that focus on development. Many fewer of our students go into the private sector, but some do. Many students also go in to do graduate work, so they take master's degrees to further specialize in a region or in a methodology. Some go to law school. So there's a whole range of things that you could choose from this, which are really fun. You could be a professor. So that's my information dump, and I'm super happy to take questions if you have any about what I've said. And you're welcome, as I said, just throw your questions into the chat, and as you consider whether you have any, we will all just, well, I can't see any of you, although you have lovely names. I will just sit here and I'll wait a couple minutes to see if anybody comes in with questions. This is a good question. What are the specific co-op opportunities? I also manage the co-op program for conflict studies and human rights. So I would say, I mean, look, University of Ottawa is, you may think it's conveniently located, depending on what you think about the city of Ottawa. But the main, I suppose the vast majority of the students that we have do co-op placements in various types of government departments. And so some of them are working in global affairs, working on specific conflicts. Some of them are working in the Department of National Defense, similarly working on specific types of conflicts. Some of them, we've got people who work in the health department. So, I mean, often people are choosing jobs which are related to either the conflict zone or the human right that they're particularly interested in. So those are the specific, I think that that answers the first question that came in to the best of my ability. Yes, you can combine the program. So, oh, sorry, Jane has come back in with another question of co-op. In order to be eligible for co-op, so I actually don't know how many of our students are eligible for co-op or what type of requirements that meets. But maybe Sarah is lurking as one of the black boxes here. Maybe she can throw up the, or do you either know, or can you throw up a link to where somebody can see the information about co-op? And how many courses are conflict studies and human rights required to take per semester? I actually don't know, but I also assume that you have to be a full-time student during your off term in order to be eligible for co-op, although I could be wrong about that. And maybe Sarah will throw in a link to explain the specific eligibility for co-op in ECH. Yes, Gary, you are able to combine your program with specialization in other disciplines, including political science. I don't know very much about communication, but I can say that these programs, almost all of them, will have both a major and a minor, and you can combine them in whichever way works for you. ECH and political science work nicely together often. The grade average for high school graduates thinking of applying to this program, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that at all. I'm sorry, Jenna. Something reasonable.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. If we want, we could tackle some of these questions about admissions and co-op. Do you mind doing that, Sarah? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I was just writing an answer, but I can answer verbally. So for the how many courses required to take per semester. So when you're doing co-op, you're not taking any classes. So you would be doing usually 4 or 5 courses per semester. So I sent in the link I sent, you can see that you would be doing the fall semester, this winter semester for your first 2 years. So you would be taking about 5 classes normally, and then you would do your first work term in the summer. Then you don't take 8 courses. Usually, if you keep to 5 courses a semester, you're good to finish on time. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's usually what it does. For the grade average, I was looking it up, so I'll be right back.
For the average for high school graduates, so Jenna, if you're coming from Ontario, the average there is mid-70s and your prerequisite is English for you. But if you are coming from elsewhere, could you just drop that in the chat so we can give you a better response? And if not, then you can just say totally cool. All good to go.
Yeah, so Ontario is mid-70s with your English or your French.
Anyone else? How many students? Somewhere between, usually our incoming class is about, it's around 70 students. Yeah, I think, although maybe Karen or Sarah can correct me. I'm actually not sure about if that's in total or just the English program. So actually, my recollection is that 70 in the English program and about maybe about 30 in the French program. That's what.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that program is pretty small, but it depends more on the number of people who apply. So there's not really like a limit. It really will depend on how many people apply, but yeah, I think around 100 total is the number.
Yeah, the Madison, I don't know where you're coming from or how much you know about university already, but ECH is considered to be quite a small program with about 400 students over the course of 4 years. Maybe depending on what you're coming from, that either seems either my kids upstairs have just reached level 17 in Pokemon, so they've apparently moved on from Lego. Anyway, and so the anyway, that's 400 in over a program is actually considered to be quite small, and over a 4-year period, students really get to know each other often, especially in the specializations that they choose. So it's a little program, and it means that you get to know each other. You also get to know professors. I mean, it's slightly harder in this Zoom environment, but if things go smoothly in the world, maybe most of you would actually be on campus in September, and then we can and you would be having a chance to meet each other and also the professors and get to know them. And, obviously, optimistically form relationships that are significant to everybody involved. Okay, we've got 2 minutes left before we have to leave this room. Such as it is, are there other questions that I can? Oh, how has COVID affected the program? It's not at all. No. Okay. So I mean, look. I mean, COVID's wacky and has had a huge and profound impact on everybody in so many different dimensions. But I mean, for right now, we're offering all our courses online, so that would be the main impact. And I think, so that the course delivery is online. Some students respond well to that. Some students do not respond well to that. That's totally reasonable because it's excruciating to receive a lecture via Zoom. But you know, we're adults here and trying to do our best to continue so that when this is all over, we are able to return to our lives with maybe a slightly better understanding about how people can be affected by poor pandemic planning. That's just a separate thing. But I mean, in terms of so I think the main effect for students is that you don't get to be with each other. And I think that's really hard on students because it's hard on me, and I live with my family, which I quite like most of the time. So I think that the quality of the education is just as good, and professors are working super triple level hard to try to make it as engaging as possible through these little black boxes that you offer me. But I think realistically, it's a harder slog when you have to do it all online, and I think the isolation is a real it's a challenge. Rosemary Kennedy, it's evenly split. So the first 2 years are the theory of conflict and human rights. So students are taking an even set of courses in both. The first course in the first year is on both conflict studies and human rights. In fact, it's a study of conflict by looking at human rights, so it gets people involved in both questions. In the second year, you're taking theory courses in both conflict and human rights, and then in the third year, you make your call. And I've been in this program since 2009, and I've seen there's years where conflict is the thing. It kind of depends if there's a what to say. If there's a fancy conflict going on, like a popular one that people are kind of keen about, conflict becomes more interesting. And then if then we switch so that there's in the year of the world year of the women, then women's human rights become something that people are more interested in focusing on. I suspect that next year people are going to be really interested in the right to health, vaccine distribution kinds of questions. So there'll be a return to a focus on human rights. But in general, yes, and we actually look for students who are keen to to focus in both directions, because the conversations between people who do conflict and human rights are great. So according to the rule book that I have, Karen, I think I'm supposed to just cut everybody off. Yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask it at the Faculty of Social Sciences booth. Okay, team, I'm typing in my email. Here is my email. You can send me emails if you have more questions, and I will attempt to rope you into our program. Please feel free to do that.